Now we're going to add even more realism to our scene by adding real shadows, not faked Photoshop painted shadows, but real genuine shadows created from our light source, the shadows that interact with the other objects in our scene. So what I'm going to do, it's actually a pretty complex process. I'm going to double click on the light layer. I could open the light layer up here and go into light options, but for me, it just seems like it's easier just to double click the light and we get the same parameters right here. And what we're going to do is check cast shadows and then click OK. And when you do that as a new After Effects user, it can be very frustrating because nothing seems to change very much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resize my layers, because what we need to do is go into the material options for each layer and change the light and shadow settings. So I'm going to select the top layer. That's icon 5, layer number 5. And I'm going to go down to the green barn shadow on this layer 38. I'm going to shift click that layer so it selects all the layers between layers 5 and 38. Then I'm going to press the letter A 2 times. If we press it once, it's going to show us the anchor point property for each layer. We don't want that, so push A 2 times. A, and there we go. Here are the 3D options for every layer. Now, making sure not to click anything else because it will mess our selection up, go to the Cast Shadows parameter. And we need to turn this on because what's happening is that there are shadows being cast by the light source, but in order for an object to cast a shadow onto another object, we need to enable this setting here. So I'm going to turn cast shadows from off to on. And if you have all of those layers selected, then all of those layers will now be casting shadows. This is a mess though, so let's close this up with all these layers selected by hitting Shift tilde, and that will collapse those layers, clean things up in our timeline panel nicely, resize this, and now we can see we have some shadows added to our scene. We have a shadow being cast here. We could see it. We could see definitely this shadow here, all based on where this light is. If we were to take this light and move it over and move the direction that it's pointing over, we'd also be changing what receives shadow and how that shadow is being cast. Now, one of the things that I don't like about this shadow, as cool as shadows are, is that it's just way too dark. I don't think seeing this light would have shadows this completely dark. So we can change that. Go ahead and go back to the light layer, double click it, and then let's take shadow darkness down to maybe 50%. And then let's go down to shadow diffusion and increase this, maybe to about 15, 20, somewhere around there. Shadow darkness is basically kind of like an opacity switch for the shadow. So by taking it to 50%, we're basically saying that we want lighter shadows, which in a scene lit this bright, it looks weird to have shadows that are very dark. So having 50% shadows are good. And then shadow diffusion makes it so that they're softer edges, so it's not as hard edged, which gives like kind of a nice softer feel to our piece here. I'm going to go ahead and click OK now. One of the things that's a little frustrating, going through all of this and going through all those settings where we enable camera casting shadows might seem a little frustrating, but there are times, like say for example, the way that this 2 icon is casting its shadow on the trees, it doesn't look very natural. I don't like it. And actually, let me get the unified camera tool and click and drag around so we can see the way that this is casting shadows. Because we softened it and diffused it, it's not as bad as it once was. But we might want really hard shadows and it just didn't look very good in the tree. So we might choose to take the number 2 icon and make just that one thing not cast shadows. And that's really the magic of lighting in After Effects, especially if you've been on a real world set. You know that you can't easily exclude things from light that easily. You can't just click an on and off switch and have something not have light bounced onto it or have a shadow bounced onto it, but you can here in After Effects. And you can see the difference that these shadows make, the extra little bit of realism and depth that these shadows add. It's just remarkable. So again, even though this 3D thing in After Effects is very simple, it's just flat layers arranged in a three-dimensional world, with these extra features, they can be made to look much more realistic.